They say fear protects you, that it keeps you alive. But here's the truth they never tell you. Fear is the chain that keeps men on their knees. A fearless heart isn't born. It's forged in pain, in struggle, in blood. Luffy didn't rise because the seas were calm. He rose because he never let the storm own his soul. When the world screamed impossible, he grinned. When death stood in front of him, he walked forward. And when everyone else broke under the weight of fear, he carried his crew, his dream, his will without a tremor in his heart. That's what makes him unstoppable. Not strength alone, not luck, but the refusal to let fear decide his life. And you, every time fear whispers, stay small, you have two choices. Kneel or rise. Your heart was not made to tremble. It was made to roar. So take the punch, bleed if you must, but never ever surrender your fire. Because the ones who own the world are not the ones with the loudest voice. They're the ones with the fearless heart. Fear isn't the enemy. It's the test. A trial put in front of every man who dares to dream. Luffy never denied fear, but he never let it sit in the captain's chair of his soul. He knew something the weak always forget. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act while fear screams in your face. Think about it. Every dreamer who stayed on their knees faded. Every fighter who waited for the perfect moment rotted. But those with a fearless heart, they wrote their names in history with scars as their ink. The world bows not to talent, not to privilege, but to the man who refuses to kneel. Luffy laughs at emperors. He charges at monsters. He risks it all, not because he is blind to the danger, but because he has already decided. No fear will rule me. And this is your lesson. The heart you carry was not made for chains. It was not made to shrink under shadows. It was made to rise, to fight, to conquer. So ask yourself, when fear knocks on your door tonight, will you open it and kneel? Or will you stand, smile, and say, I've been waiting for you? Because in the end, a fearless heart doesn't just survive, it ascends. A fearless heart isn't soft. It's carved in storms. It's hammered by loss. It's beaten, scarred, and still refuses to break. Luffy has been crushed. He has bled. He has stood in the ruins of his own failure. But his spirit never bent. That's why enemies tremble, not at his fist, but at his will. Because how do you defeat someone who does not kneel? How do you shatter a man whose heart fears nothing? Not death, not pain, not destiny itself. You don't. You can't. You watch him rise again. You watch him smile when he should scream. You watch him walk through fire and realize you're not fighting flesh, you're fighting a force. And that's the truth. A fearless heart is unstoppable. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It doesn't bow to despair. It stands, bleeds, and keeps moving forward until the world itself steps aside. So remember this, when your fear whispers that you can't, let your heart roar louder. I will, because in the end, the ones who change the world aren't the strongest, aren't the fastest. They are the ones with a fearless heart. A fearless heart doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It creates it. Luffy never begged the sea to be kind. He never asked the world for mercy. He took the storms. He embraced the chaos. Because deep down, he knew fear is nothing but a chain. And chains are meant to be broken. A fearless heart turns pain into fuel. It turns scars into reminders. Every time he falls, he rises stronger, not because he's unhurt, but because his will refuses to rot. The world tried to crush him. Stronger men have fallen. Giants have bowed. Kings have lost their crowns. But Luffy, he laughs. He fights. He keeps walking forward, not because he's invincible, but because he's unafraid. Fearless hearts don't live forever, but their legacy does. Their fire burns long after the body is gone. And that is why Luffy will never be forgotten. A fearless heart doesn't fear failure, because failure is just proof you tried when others stayed silent. It doesn't fear loneliness, because loneliness is the price of walking a path no one else dares to take. Look at Luffy. Every island he stepped on, enemies waited. Every battle he fought, the odds were stacked against him. And yet he never lowered his head, never bent his back, because a fearless heart doesn't kneel not to kings, not to gods, not even to fate. You see, fear feeds on hesitation, but courage grows in action. When you take that first step, when you swing even though you might fall, that's when you kill fear. And Luffy's heart, it beats with the rhythm of defiance. Every punch he throws says, "I will not break." Every smile he wears says, "You can't control me." Every scar he carries says, "I survived what was meant to end me." A fearless heart is not born. It is forged. Forged in battles, in storms, in nights where the world wants you to give up. But if you hold on, if you keep pushing, you'll realize you were never fighting to avoid death. You were fighting to truly live. The fearless heart doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the world to give it a crown. It takes the blows, it bleeds, it crawls through fire, and still rises. Luffy never asked the seas if he was worthy. He never asked his enemies if he was ready. He just declared his dream and dared the world to try and stop him. That's the essence of fearlessness, not the absence of pain, but the refusal to kneel before it. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to spit in its face. Understand this. The world doesn't fear your weakness. The world fears the day you stop running from it. Because the moment you choose to fight with everything you are, you become unstoppable. That's why Luffy terrifies even kings. Not because he is invincible, but because he cannot be broken. No chain can hold him. No defeat can silence him. No loss can kill the fire inside him. A fearless heart is a weapon, sharper than any blade, stronger than any army. It's the force that turns storms into stepping stones and enemies into ashes. And when the world laughs at you, when they point and say, "You'll never make it," remember Luffy's grin. Remember how he laughed, not at comfort, but at chaos, because a fearless heart doesn't bow to doubt. It turns doubt into fuel. So when your back is against the wall, when your hands shake and your legs weaken, ask yourself, will you kneel or will you rise? The seas don't hand out mercy. The world doesn't bend because you ask it to. It crushes, it breaks, it tests. And yet, that's why Luffy thrives in it. Because while others wait for calm waters, he sails straight into the storm. While others look for guarantees, he gambles everything on belief. And when the world screams impossible, he doesn't argue. He just keeps moving forward until impossible bows to him. That's what fearlessness truly is, not arrogance, not blind hope, but a commitment carved into the soul. I will not stop, no matter what. Think about it. Most people lose long before they fight. They surrender in silence. They kneel to doubt, to comfort, to fear. But Luffy, he kneels to nothing. Not to emperors, not to gods, not to fate itself. He knows the truth most men never dare admit, that the world is cruel. But so is he when it comes to protecting his dream. That's why every hit he takes, every scar he earns, only makes him stronger. Because pain is not the end. Pain is the sharpening of the blade. So when you fall, when your body says quit and your spirit starts to break, don't look for rescue. Stand back up, take the punch, swing again. The fearless heart doesn't beg for victory, it creates it. The storm quiets, the waves ease, and the narrator's voice lowers but grows sharper, heavier, as if cutting straight into the soul. You see, Luffy was never the strongest at the beginning. He didn't have the sharpest sword. He didn't have the deadliest techniques. He didn't have power handed down to him on a silver plate. What he had was something far greater. An unshakable will. A hunger that could not be broken. And a fire that even death could not silence. That's the truth most people ignore. Strength alone doesn't crown kings. Talent alone doesn't write legends. It is willpower, the refusal to kneel, the refusal to quit. Think about it. Every time life cornered him, every time his body screamed for rest, every time the world told him, "You can't," he smiled. Not because it was easy, not because he was unafraid, but because he understood something most people never will. Fear is temporary, pain is temporary, but regret lasts forever. And that's what you must remember. When life hits you, when you're left bleeding, when you're mocked, abandoned, or doubted, you have two choices: bend or become unbreakable. Luffy chose the second. He stood back up every single time, no matter how broken he was. Not because he thought he'd win, but because losing wasn't an option. That's the secret. The world doesn't fear those who are strong. The world fears those who refuse to stay down. The ones who laugh in the face of defeat. The ones who turn their scars into banners.